Rachel Zegler recently learned about Disney's preparing for a second Snow White revival. And after all, she is furious. The dramatic backlash and a $115 million box office failure. You would assume that Disney would take this on slowly, but the fuse has been lighted. Additionally, Rachel has never stayed silence from light teasing to full-fledged. She's expressing her anger by hurling tint and a heavy hint. Mayhem behind the scenes, she claims. The next one may blow this whole thing away. Circumstances are open, but where did this occur? Actually, the issue started. Let's go back to when Disney was feeling down in October 2016. Bold and well-publicized plans for a Snow White's live-action adaptation, and the Seven Dwarfs believed it to be a Aaron Ceda Wilson was recognized for his audacious decision to compose the screenplay and include some. They introduced Bench to musical magic. Justin Paul and Pasek, the team behind Law, The Greatest Showman and La La Land. Expectations naturally skyrocketed because what might go wrong with forest animals and glittery jazz hands? Director Mark Webb started in May 2019. The group leaving supporters either excited or utterly bewildered as they swoop through New York, who directed Spider-Man, is one. Something other than leading a narrative about speaking animals, and a queen who is envious is in completely distinct atmosphere. In spite of the queries, things continued to proceed, and in June, it appeared hopeful for a while. Twitter became viral in 2021 when Disney declared Rachel Zegler to be the replacement Snow White, West Side's formidable voice. Story was putting on the famous dress. In November, things became even more interesting when even Gal Gadot Wonder Woman signed up for play the villainous queen. Let's face it, who dislikes seeing Gal grinning while arranging sabotage using mirrors in a floor-length cloak? Even though she acknowledged that was eager to adopt a villain persona in January. Another surprise in 2022 was the absence of Prince Charming. However, this time we received a Robin Hood-style character portrayed by Disney's Andrew Burnap. Was obviously in the feeling like shaking things up, but just once the actors were chosen and the show was just before taking flight, a fire started on. Scheduled for March 2022, fortunately nobody was injured, but the harm necessitated postponements. Production continued until July 2022. Features expansive sets, striking lighting, and lots of magic with a green screen when, at last, they believed it was time to wrap up. Another unexpected test was conducted. The screenings weren't particularly impressive. Disney's kudos, so the group jumped back in June 2023 for reshoots, and then came. Peter Dinklage referred to the controversies as out the idea of the Seven Dwarfs. You're forward-thinking in one sense, but you're continuing to tell that outdated tale regarding what are the Seven Dwarfs residing in a cave? Disney, how are you? Apply the brakes and declared, all right, they're magical animals right now. Using CGI magic too. The mixture, but did it resolve the issue? Not actually. Some people with dwarfism. The community did not like being called a lost chance for real representation, but the best. Rachel Zegler is the subject of disputes herself when Disney made her. Reactions to casting were somewhat divided. Applauded long overdue diversity as others who favor the conventional. Snow White's misgivings appeared out of nowhere. For all the time, Snow White was in style. Incorrect reasons why critics voiced their complaints. Disney is rewriting history even. We're discussing a story while conversing. Wild creatures, as well as a girl who makes friends with 7 unrelated men in the instead of giving up Forest Rachel. She emphasized the significance of representation, made clear how adored Snow White is speaking Spanish civilizations, and conveyed enthusiasm for putting a fresh take on the character. Whether you were clapping and making everyone cringe, was listening if you believed the pinnacle of the drama was the casting. We're only beginning in 2022. Rachel called the initial interviewer Seven Dwarfs and Snow White quite antiquated, and you could almost hear everyone gasping. From traditionalist Disney fans worldwide, Globe, adding that the prince in the strange movie made it obvious that there wouldn't be any Snow White around, waiting for a stranger to arrive. Please make her life better. It's not 1937 anymore, and without a doubt, we wrote a Snow White. The prince will not save you. Her goal is to become the leader. She is aware that certain fans may love her. This new perspective is said to as invigorating, while some were extremely outraged by the overdue. Then, in August 2024, everything became political. Just after the release of the teaser trailer, Rachel shared 2 pictures on social media, simply saying, "Free Palestine." Comments went viral because although Rachel was expressing solidarity with Palestinians, because Gal Gadot, her co-star, was publicly what followed pro-Israel was. A boycott was threatened, and there was complete anarchy. Comment sections become battlefields when admirers began dissecting each advertising image for tenseness. Things became more heated between the stars when someone discovered Rachel's previous tweets, denouncing former President Donald Trump and hurling serious criticism at his supporters. Like that, a completely new storm began with individuals reposting, protecting, canceling, and reacting to it. Was everything extremely draining by? In November 2024, Rachel was forced to release an "Despite my apology, I can only hope that imperfections and in spite of my fissures and my pauses, and there are several that, in all of my endeavors, including every premiere, people will line up to see her," maintained that she had no intention of hurting anyone and only want tranquility, but by that time the damage was done and the atmosphere on the set were entirely untrue rumors on the street. Gal and Rachel didn't quite agree when Rachel was speaking. Gal had spoken out in favor of Palestine, made it apparent that she was standing in, stating plainly in front of you today that I'm Gal, a Jewish person, and we have hated Jews enough, but their rift wasn't limited to political journalists. Discussed start tension in whispers, and some asserted that Disney needed to supply additional security for Gal following the onset of threats. Entering the studio, the kicker planned individual press engagements for not a single staged performance by the actresses, relaxing on a Hollywood communal sofa. That's essentially their code. Are clearly not Disney pals. The marketing crew was frantically sending out emails, trailers with panic editing, and basically employing babysitters on social media to watch Rachel's accounts closely, like hawks. The deployment of promotions grew increasingly clumsy, greater than anything previously observed, with the joint appearances, infrequent interviews, caution, and more tense than a family on the red carpet dinner following a political discussion. On March 21, 2025, Snow White officially debuted in theaters throughout Canada, the United States, and the opening weekend stats weren't cute. Hauled in roughly $42,200,000 in the country, which was currently falling short of the anticipated addition of $455 million in foreign markets, about bringing the global opening to $45,100,000 to roughly, to put that in context, $87,300,000. The production budget for this film was in between $240 to $270 million, excluding the Disney launched a marketing bombardment at it. Early in April, the film had scraped, collectively, the US's $71,400,000 and $75,800,000 in total globally. Do the math, 147,200,000 people worldwide, and Disney was facing a financial setback of approximately $115 million. So what happened? After the release, Rachel stepped up incorrectly, like an experienced professional when detractors weren't exactly excited. She supported her. It's really validating to work so hard. This movie has a lot of work, but I genuinely believe that love speaks for me, and also for the film's creators. We set out to offer a new viewpoint, she admitted that not everyone was experiencing it, but maintained that the movie had heart, which is truly commendable, but depending on the source, Snow White didn't just get a makeover, she had a complete. Could Galadoo benefit from a personality transplant? She said in a sophisticated manner that filmmaking is collaborating and producing the timeless. We all gave it our best effort, but when you've gone through everything, let's be honest. Terrible apple poisoning and crown wearing, only to have the film fail. It hurts. The reviews on Rotten didn't help either. The movie received a middling review on Tomatoes, 42% based on an average of 215 reviews. Critics' rating of 5.2 out of 10. In essence, everyone agreed that Zegler was fantastic, although the film felt unclear about it desired to be, which is reasonable given when viewing a fairy tale and not sure if it's a feminism or a musical, a manifesto or a fever dream with CGI. Metacritic, something is definitely wrong. Wasn't much more sympathetic to the movie. 50 out of 100 audiences straight up. Furthermore, they weren't precisely tossing confetti. It received a B+ from CinemaScore, which isn't awful, but not the glowing Disney was counting on the reception. Rachel's performance was fantastic, however the creating illustrations and modifications to the initial story didn't get many viewers left, perplexed as to why. Suddenly, Snow White was at the head of a revolution as opposed to merely singing to birds, followed by the ripple effect that when you flop, you know things are horrible, begins to impact Disney's upcoming projects. Considering Rapunzel's next significant event, it seems to be on hold indefinitely now. Following Snow White's nosedive, Disney became anxious, but it wasn't only regarding one poor film but their entire live-action future. Waited to observe how Lilo and, before leaving, Stitch and Moana perform. Moving forward with more remakes, but how? How far along are these additional planned? Lilo and Stitch's remake is one of a qualified pressure cooker under the supervision of the same Dean Fleer camp who brought This Is Marcel from the show Wearing Shoes. An updated version of the beloved 2002 animated film is delivering up messy, hard alien food and likely sufficient ohana to make even your most emotionally aloof cousin sob. The film opens in theaters on May 23, 2025, and Disney sincerely hopes it doesn't go through as Snow White did. Let's discuss. Maya Colo, a new cast member, is stepping into Lilo's sandals, and individuals are. I was already completely enamored and thrilled. Is this happening in combination with that speechless enthusiasm? She has the appearance and energy, and ideally the energy of turmoil required to prevent Stitch from transforming the planet into his. Sydney Agadong's personal playground is. David is portraying Nanny and Kaipo Dedoit, the kind surfer boy who has been making an effort to make advances on Nanny since the bush. The true showstopper for administration. Chris Sanders is that Lilo and Stitch. Stitch is back voicing, because to be honest, nobody else could complain or yell and purr. Thank the stars, I really like him. They didn't fuck up that section. Serious Range Zach is brought by the ensemble cast. Billy Magnus as the Jumba, Galifianakis as the very perplexed Agent Pleakley, and as Cobra Bubbles, Courtney B. Vance. You're strangely attracted to a government guy yet. I'm not sure why, but they did shoot the Hawaii as a whole to retain those genuine island atmosphere, but Mother Nature and the plans of real-life crisis were different. CO-19 caused delays in the filming process and industrial strikes, but they managed to finalizing the process in March 2024. Stitch and Lilo are surfing in the direction of release. A new wave is forming, and this one is reminiscent of Moana. Officially, the live-action Moana is on the April 2023 calendar announcement and slated to debut on July 10, 2026. With you already being directed by Thomas Kail. No, it will be fashionable, filled with emotion and brimming with abrupt stops. Catherine Lagahaya, a a new person with Samoan ancestry, is performing Moana, and fans are ecstatic about. The casting decision has received recognition for remaining truthfully culturally authentic. She might just be walking in the trailer, slowly moving across the beach, and people would continue to weep, but the actual Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson tidal wave is returning as Maui because, let's be honest, that level of charm is unmatched by anyone else. And sing without actually making any. I thought strangely, oh, this song could. This is like an anthemic, so be pretty cool. Encouraging and motivating, such as, come on, can I? Go ahead and do it. You can do it. John 2 is also joining the cast. Frankie Adams as Chief 2, Cena, and Grandma Tala the Ghost, played by Rena Owen. We all secretly wish we had Granny. In August 2024, filming began in Atlanta and Hawaii since there's more. Disney is more Polynesian than Atlanta, ensuring the culture is handled with honor. Traditional dance and music are being included, as well as Lin-Manuel Miranda has returned to her musical career. Brilliant score, in contrast to Snow White. The goal of live-action Moana is more than merely creating. Everything appears more costly now that it's established. To go further into identity-related topics, preservation of the environment, and self-discovery with Lin and that lineup. Expectations are really high once back on board. However, the issue still stands. Can it survive to the original's magic, or will it delve into the admirable endeavor, but why? Classification that afflicted Snow White, and thus, we return to Rachel's Zegler and the shocking revelation of a second Snow. After the first one crashed, White rebooted, and burned, Disney would likely take a step back and reevaluate rather than seeming to jump right back in, resolved to do it correctly this time. And, according to people close to Zegler, Rachel is furious, claim that she feels deceived and caught off guard by the choice made by the studio following weathering months of criticism supporting her forward-thinking interpretation of the character and supporting the movie by its failure on both a critical and commercial level. She's basically watching Disney now restart a reboot that acknowledges defeat. Rachel put her there before she was even a year old. Career and heart at stake for this. One person who worked on the project said that production, she received death threats, political criticism, and experienced her social. Disney has essentially been pulled apart by the media, stating, "We appreciate your effort, but we're switching to something else." Naturally, the second reboot has her in a rage with allegedly returning to the fundamentals: less revolution, more birdsong. A director with a reputation for family-friendly, equitable, and thoughtful, bringing along an unidentified actress for the strategy's primary role seems to be forget it ever occurred instead of expanding on their knowledge of this. The choice has an impact on more than simply Rachel. Everyone is affected by the ripple effect. Participating in the initial relaunch, Gal Gadot received a fair amount of criticism for her. The evil queen's characterization has persisted, diplomatically quiet about it, but, according to accounts, she's equally shocked by industry analysts' comment on Disney's rapid shift. Are doubting Disney's approach. Performing a reboot so rapidly is unprecedented and dangerous, the movie adds. Marcus Reynolds, an industry specialist, indicates that the studio is in emergency mode and might perhaps harm their reputation. Additionally, audiences are not foolish. They will consider this to be an acknowledgement that they received. Disney's stock was incorrect the first time, has already suffered since now. White's underwhelming performance. 3.2% decline in the days following the box office numbers were made public. This new announcement hasn't improved the situation with speculating about the leadership's. The studio's decision-making procedure is currently in a risky situation with Lilo and Moana and Stitch are approaching. Cannot afford to make a mistake again. According to insiders, these movies might go through last-minute changes to prevent the minefields of politics and culture that Snow White is plagued by a new mandate. At Disney, according to a source with the studio's activities adhere to the source material, stay away from anything that can be interpreted as politically sensitive and concentrate on the music and magic that created these tales that were initially cherished. However, critics, is that being too cautious? Claim that Disney's advantages have always been changing with the times for a long time, preserving the essential elements that make their stories unique by withdrawing into a more conservative strategy. They run the risk of turning into unimportant to younger viewers who anticipate more forward-thinking narratives. As for Rachel Zegler, this dispute could truly advance her career in unforeseen ways. How Hollywood has a strong return narrative and her fervent protection of her efforts have gained her the respect of. She's already lined up in certain circles numerous new initiatives, including a lead part in a forthcoming science fiction thriller and a minor role in the work of a famous director. The upcoming awards contestant Rachel's not reversing course, her agent says. She defends her action and the Snow White's vision, which she helped develop. Despite her disappointment, she is not defeated since Disney continues to advance its live-action strategy. Everyone will be watching Lilo, and whether it flies, Stitches may release, or drains will probably ascertain not only Moana's destiny, but possibly the whole live-action recreation method that has established Disney's approach to the. Over the last 10 years, one thing is certain: Snow White's poison at the box office has contaminated more than simply the bitten apple. Disney's self-confidence was rocked. Release date and perhaps modified. How they'll go about telling stories for future years, as well as for Rachel Zegler. It is only the start of what promised to be a highly visible conflict between corporate harm and artistic integrity.